This is the Drew Experience. Good morning, everybody. It's an early one today, whether you're in Canada, US, and if you're in the UK and Europe, it's about a 6 to 7 hour difference. This is the show that is 80% combat sports, 20% everything else. And today I'm joined by my first British guest. So he's my Commonwealth brother, since the UK and Canada share kind of a funny historical bond in history. And I had his friend on about a week and a half ago in Sensei Wesley Jansen. He is also the other founder of KRT for social media. He is the one and only Sensei Darren Stringer. Welcome, Sensei.
Hi, Drew. It's first of all, it's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for asking me and inviting me on here. Hope we can give a good experience for everyone watching. And yeah, I look forward to this. It's going to be great.
Oh, I'm excited too. Honestly, anytime I get to have a sensei on from Kyokushin or just a pro fighter, I'm a martial arts fanatic, but Kyokushin is in my heart. So I have to give a special attention to my Kyokushin roots.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we're unique, right? I mean, we share a great bond together throughout the world in Kyokushin, you know, and it's really good. I enjoy Kyokushin for very many reasons, but one of them is a great family feel amongst people even far away or near. So it's great. I love it.
That's what I felt when I had Wesley on. Wesley is just such a mensch, you know, Wesley Jansen of what's the name of his dojo? I always mispronounce it.
Hikori Mayo.
Hikori Mayo, Sensei Wesley of Hikori Mayo. Shout out to him. Amazing human being. Like when we spoke, if you saw the episode, him and I clicked right away. And then after off the record, he was like, "Oh, you're gonna like Darren too." He's like, "You're gonna," and we're gonna get to that. We're gonna get to that there. But you know, let me ask you, because you are one of the most accomplished European lightweights in history. You are like you look like Darren Till, but you have the accomplishments. You're like a Darren Till, you know Darren Till in the UFC, right?
Yeah, I know of him. I don't follow UFC too much, but yeah, I know a bit.
So you look a bit like Darren Till, like the much lighter version, with the accomplishments of, let's say, George St. Pierre, with all the defenses you've had, all the tournaments you've had. And so I just want to say, you know, this is like, guys, this is a big deal. This is like a guest that's a big deal. Like Sensei Wesley and Sensei Fogarazzi and all my other senseis and chins, this is another big deal. So let's talk about your let's talk about, no problem. Hey man, I love pumping the tires of I like promoting people. There's enough success to go around.
Yeah, that's true. There is. It's very humbling to hear, though. Thank you very much for your kind words.
Not a problem. Hey man, it's positivity. You know, life's too short to be negative. So what got you into martial arts, like especially Kyokushin? Let's start like how did it all start?
How it all started was down at Crystal Palace. I used to live in South London. I grew up in Streatham until I was probably around about 12. I lived in Streatham, South London, and I started at Crystal Palace Dojo, where I was fortunate, I suppose, that my dad knew of the British Open that always used to take place at Crystal Palace every year. Fantastic tournament, really good event. My dad used to go and watch this anyway. He didn't really do karate. He'd done a couple of lessons, not necessarily Kyokushin, but his best friend's son was doing Kyokushin. And that's how I really stumbled across Kyokushin. I think I say this quite a lot, that most people, they fall into Kyokushin by chance, because when you're a kid or you're a parent, you don't really know karate. You know, you don't really know the different styles. You just know that there's a karate class going on over here. So I'm going to send little Johnny over here to train. It's only that we were fortunate that we fell into a really good style of karate, because there's lots of them out there that they're not so good. And there's lots of them out there that are good. And we're just lucky that our parents lived close to a dojo that was good. So I was fortunate enough to start at Crystal Palace. Hanshi was one of the instructors, and Sensei Joe Borg was my other instructor. So they were my first two instructors. Hanshi was normally there on a Friday, and Sensei Joe was there on a Tuesday. Shortly after, well, not shortly after, maybe a few years after training, Sensei Joe, he left, and it became what was back then is Sensei Felix, but now Shion Felix became another instructor of mine. So How I got into karate, I don't really know what made me want to go. I just always remember wanting to do karate, and it was probably watching Bruce Lee or something like that, and going around to my dad's friend's house, and the guy was doing like some nunchucks or whatever. But yeah, I mean, I thank myself every day that my parents actually picked Kyokushin, because I could have been unknowingly doing something that was really bad. And you know, fortunately, we picked a good one. So I was there for a while, and then we moved house, and then I was just lucky that the area we moved to was near another dojo. Fortunately, again with Hanshi, so it worked out fantastically for me, because it's shaped my whole life really.
It's impressive. And you also have like, because I do see a similarity with what you said there, because martial arts too, and you're from UK, and the UK is a football, like, well, call it soccer here. It's a football hotbed, so
Yeah,
everyone's doing always football, rugby, and then maybe martial arts on the side. But for me, it was like it's kind of the same thing. Like I try team sports. We have ice hockey here; it's very big, but I always liked fighting. I mean, from the action movies too, and maybe video games. I mean, I don't know, like, what was did you grow up on Street Fighter 2 and Mortal Kombat when it first came out?
it was probably yes, but I don't know how old you are, but by the sounds of it, I'm probably a little bit older than that. I mean, I was born in '81, so now I'm 39, and I suppose Nintendo was coming out just at the same time that I was kind of getting involved in karate. And yeah, I mean, Ryu and the other guy, they're actually based on Kyokushin fighters. So it was Andy Hug, I'm led to believe. So yeah, I mean, I think football is massive over here, and everybody wants to be the next Ronaldo or the Alan Shearer, as it was back in the '90s, banging in goals left, right, and centre. But there's not the profile or the acknowledgement of how difficult the sport that we actually do is, and it's very difficult because you know I've always said that what we do is we can transition into a lot of other sports because of the versatility and the coordination and the skill set that we obtain through karate. I've played football, I've played golf, I've played a lot of sports, and I enjoy all sports. I played football for the team at college and at school. Not a great level. I was pretty decent at golf, and a couple of other sports as well. I think the coordination, the timing, the discipline that you obtain through karate in general. I also did judo, which gave me a really good strength for a small person, because I'm not very big, as you probably gathered. But I would say I'm quite strong for someone my size. So, and I think Kyokushin and a little bit of judo help towards that. So
A very good mix, honestly, because a lot of people, I have met some former judokas that do Kyokushin, and they said, I started with judo just to kind of help understand my body balance and whatnot. So I
yeah,
do believe it plays judo can play a very big role for
it,
taking on striking.
it's a very big role, and I'm not trying to compare myself to either of these people, but both Hanshi and Sosai both did judo as well, and I think Sosai was a fourth dan in judo, and Hanshi was a very accomplished judo person as well, and Hanshi also played rugby as well for Northern Rhodesia, I think it was at the time he mentioned. So he was obviously a naturally strong person, but judo it does give you a very good sense of balance, strength, and trying to deter and alter people's balance in that sense. And it can be very, very useful in karate. And obviously, if you decide to go into MMA, BJJ and judo are not a million miles apart, but they're obviously key aspects to help you out over there as well. I mean, I was pretty good at judo. I won the Southern Area tournament. I won a load of tournaments. The difference between judo and karate is there's tournaments every other weekend in judo because it's an Olympic sport.
Mhm.
That's just the way it is. But yeah, it's a fantastic bed for development, and I would suggest if you're maybe on the smaller side or struggling with balance and weight distribution, judo is going to help you out in a lot of areas. Even if you just train for a couple of years or whatever, is really going to help you in your goal for Kyokushin, because there's a lot of things out there that can supplement your training in Kyokushin, and we probably are more exposed to it nowadays than back when I was young, definitely.
Very true. And so, as you were growing up, so you had a judo background, you ended up in Kyokushin. What was the scene like in the 80s? Because, or the 90s and early 2000s, because that was the K1 era.
Yeah.
So, and you said your teacher is Shia and Felix,
Yeah.
one of the most accomplished
Yeah.
British karatekas. So, what was it like, the European scene for martial arts in the 90s and early 2000s?
And it was big. I mean, bearing in mind we split away from IKO in just after the World Tournament in '91, and the IFK was developed in '92. So there was a little bit of fraction and fragmenting going on across the Kyokushin scene at that point. But tournaments were big. You know, I remember going and watch. I remember watching Shian Felix fighting in the British, and everybody was stomping on the big pile of benches, like screaming Felix's name out. And I think he's the most successful male fighter in the British Open. He's won 5 of them. Michael Thompson was the previous one before that, winning 4. Nick DaCosta and a few others have won 3, I think, or I can't remember if it was 3 or 4 for Nick, but yeah. So Felix was obviously a figure that we all looked up to at that point, not only because he was one of my instructors, but he was actually delivering on the mat when we all went, and he's a very, very strong man, Felix, extremely strong. But the tournaments were massive. I mean, I remember going in there, and there's like 4,000 or 5,000 people in Crystal Palace back in them days, all packed out. The noise, the atmosphere, it was fantastic. I mean, I was really lucky. I got to fight and win the British Open at Crystal Palace. It's probably what a lot of people look at as the home of the British Open, because that was where it was all the time up until 2007, I think it was, when the asbestos issue had it, and then since it's moved to Crawley K2, which is a fantastic event as well. It's changed in a lot of dynamics, but the crowds nowadays are not so big. The atmosphere is still fantastic. The level of fighting has always been incredible at the British Open. So it's been really good in Europe, especially. It's probably a little bit different in Europe because there's so many countries closer together where you can just nip across and an hour here or 2 hours there, and you can go and fight in a different country and do a lot of traveling and a lot of tournaments. Whereas in the likes of Canada and unfortunately like Australia, you're quite a long way from a lot of tournaments that are existing. So although the caliber of fighters are there, it's very difficult for you guys to travel and make your way around the world as easily as the likes of me in Europe. But yeah, I mean the level and the atmosphere, and in the 90s it was really big. Early 2000s we were still doing okay, and then obviously MMA came on the scene and a couple of other things. And one of the things that maybe we haven't handled so well is the transition on media in Kyokushin. You know, we've been a little bit of a step behind in publicity, promotions, and things like that. And obviously, the likes of you and Marshall Way and the Kyokushin Shuffle are doing a great job to promote that. And kudos to you guys, because
Thank you.
unfortunately, boxing and MMA, they've got promotion coming out of their ears. And I would say that Kyokushin is better than any other form of fighting. We're much cleaner. We're much more technical. Don't get me wrong. We don't punch to the face in tournaments, which changes certain dynamics of the fight straight away. But we've had lots of people that have transitioned from Kyokushin into other areas. You know, your Mick Thompsons, your Fatosas, your Filios, your George St. Pierre's, going into K1, MMA, and then people have gone over to Thailand, back in the day when Oyama was in charge. He was supposed to send Hanshi to fight in Thailand with the other people, but Hanshi couldn't go. So even back then they were accepting challenges, doing things and divulging into different areas. So we've always had a great pedigree that we can adapt and do things. Maybe our adaptation just hasn't been too good in the social world, because I don't know really, because we're maybe a little bit not in that world because we're a little bit more rigid in discipline. I really don't know, but it's difficult for a lot of people to just go out there and go, "Hey, I'm great. Look at me. You know, do this, do that." You know, I suppose it's not the karate way
Yeah.
in no sense.
I understand. No, and when I was talking with Shian, not Shian, Sensei Pinto from Kyokushin Shuffle, we were talking, and it's fun. Let's bring it back to when you said, being from Australia, you're kind of a distance away. Yes, it is true, but Australia kind of is close to Japan. They're close to Thailand, and they have a very rich striking history. Like, I don't like, they have Australasia is one of the richest. It's because it's in that hotbed of Asia where it's originated. So
Yeah,
when I spoke to Sensei Pinto about that, he's like, we have some of the best Kyokushin practitioners in Australia and New Zealand, but we
yeah,
just don't market them well because they're kind of like all over the place.
yeah. And it's true. You know, we've got some fantastic people, fighters, karatekas, kata perfectionists. You know, you name it. There's a hotbed of talent around in Kyokushin. We just don't promote, market, and publicize uh, as widely as what we could, and there's maybe not as diverse publicity of a lot of people as well. You know, Gary O'Neill is one of the best fighters to ever have stepped on the tatami, and he's from Australia. Yeah, he trained in Hombu and Japan a lot. He was with Shian Cameron Quinn as well. I think he was an Uchideshi of him. I actually know Shian Cameron quite well. We had him on our show, KRT Teaching. We've had a lot of good chats with him, and you know, yes, you're right. Australia have had a really successful history. You know, Judd Reed, Walter,
Sam
Gary
Greco.
O'Neill, Sam Greco, Cameron Quinn. You know, there's lots of them out there. It's just they never came over to the European scene, I suppose. So for us, we're saying they're miles away, but you are right in what you say. They are fairly close to Japan. They are fairly close to Thailand and kind of that Asia area. And as a result, they've probably reaped lots of benefits as a country being so close to them.
Yeah, and in Canada too, because I know we're far away too, but because of the George St. Pierre's influence, and also because of how Quebec Kyokushin like rose early in Canada, we do have some very good fighters too. Because the U.S. is next to us, and America does have some good fighters, and they have more because they're so big compared to us. We're 36 million, and they're like 300 million. So when we do Ring Wars, which is Xian Rene Cruz's tournament, we're always getting the Canadians in there. And
Yeah, I know Rennie really well. I mean, we talk almost on a daily basis. WhatsApp is great. Hi, Rene. So yeah, I mean, I like Rene a lot. I met him actually in Quebec when I went over there to fight in my first knockdown tournament. I went over there with Hanchi, who was going over there to teach courses for a week, and he was like, "Do you want to come over and train and fight in the tournament?" I was the first cadet to fight knockdown from the UK. So I was like, sure, why not? Let's go, So I went over, traveled around a lot of different dojos with Hanchi, trained a lot, met Shian Daniel Gauthier, Julian Nadu, who was like a superstar, an up-and-coming superstar female fighter over there, very good. I saw Mikhail Zimmerman fight. He's a couple of years older than me. And I met Rene Cruz there as well. So it was a fantastic experience. And Rene's show is really good. It's not quite your normal stereotypical Kyokushin tournament, but as a result, he packs in a lot of fighters and a lot of. It's a really good event. It would have been great to have gone over there one time, but it's, as I say, you guys are a long way away and everything. But I was able to catch up with Rene a couple of years ago in America. Went over there for a little bit, said hi, and it was a great time. But he's a great guy as well. But that's Kyokushin, right? Most people you meet are great guys in Kyokushin. It's just
yeah, no, I definitely agree. And Canada too, like we have our greats for us, like for those who want to know in Europe. I mean, whether you're an IFK or you're in another organization, like when you think of Canada, North America, like our best fighters are, this is in no particular order. So I'm going from Michael Zimmerman, one of the best lightweights ever. And actually, I think he is the best lightweight ever because he dominated. I had him on my show last night, and it's going to be published. But Michael is like thinks the game, like, you know, his Shihan Gaetan Sauvé, who's also going to be coming on. Like I say, I have a lot of guests coming on because, like, you know, like it's just because we're all locked down. I digress. But Gaetan I'm quoting Shihan Sauvé here, and he's like, when you're on the tatami with Misha Zimmerman plays chess. His opposition is playing checkers.
Yeah,
And
he's good. I like Mika. I like Mika Zimmerman. He's very strong, very good fighter. I think they call him the king of the liver over here because he drops so many people with liver punches.
yeah,
He was strong. He was a really good fighter. Yeah, I got a lot of time for Mika. I got a lot of time for him. He's a good guy.
he's an amazing guy. There's him. I'm going to save one guy for last because you have a bit of a history with him. But the next one is my teacher, Mohammed Chik, the best heavyweight in North America. After that, it's Mick Cordero. Then after that, it's Vincent Michaud. Then after that, there was Amir Bemaye from Contact Kicks, but he left and, you know, he's retired basically. And we have in female Julie Lamar, Kim Carriere. There might be a few others, but there are some up and comers. But when I look at what I see in the current crop, I don't like what I see. I'm going to be honest. Like some of them were kind of like saying that they could take on like my coach or a guy like Vincent and Mick. And you have to understand something. These are the three kings of Quebec. When you come to Quebec, Canada, and you're a heavyweight, you got to fight the three kings. And I'm not, and if I sound biased, yeah, because I've seen what they've done. I've seen what they do. These are very standout guys. They're on another level, especially with Mo. And when people some say, oh, I could stand with Mo. Listen, and I'm not saying this as like his friend or a student, but I've seen what he does. And it's like fighting John Jones, okay? If you ever watched the UFC with John Jones, it's like you might be here, he's up here. It's like fighting him and Michael Zimmerman, similar IQ, same exact IQ. When they step on that tatami, it's a different beast. It's a different beast. So there's them. There's in the Western Canada, there's a few other fighters that I don't know their names. One of them is named Pasha. I don't know if he's still fighting. I don't know. Pasha Milkinov. I don't if I got the last name right. You have Pavel Petrushev in Ontario, who's a very good up and cut. He's gonna. I think he's gonna be a middleweight to light heavyweight champion. Like, no, I think he's been one already, but I think he's gonna really be like the present of Contact Kicks. And then you also have Fogarazzi's new generation coming up that we spoke about. And it's just great to see how Fogarazzi has like made a pipeline of youth that want to compete and be karatekas too.
He's got a fantastic environment over there. Like I said, I was over there a couple of years ago teaching. Great guy. Got a lot of time for Steve. We had him on KRT as well. Really talented guy. Diverse as well. Does some kickboxing. Does Kyokushin. At his Contact Kicks where he was, he's not there no more. But he had BJJ, Thai boxing, kickboxing. You know, full-time instructor. Really nice area. Really nice studio that he was teaching out of as well. And the people are really nice as well. You know, they want to learn. He's got a really good technical ability as well, and a good respect for all areas of contact fighting, and he's utilized that. Steve's a good guy. He's actually the country rep for IFK over there as well. So
I love him.
Yeah, he's good. You know, and him and Misha are probably the most people that I interact with purely because, you know, we're similar age, I guess, and I've been there to see them both. So yeah, you got some good quality in Canada as well. So don't get me wrong, it's definitely not narrowed to a single area. Kyokushin has got a wide variety of expertise in all countries and regions of the world.
You know one other guy because you've seen him at tournaments, and he's like, you gotta mention him, and that's Justin Manchini. Can you go into that history? The best for last, Justin Manchini. Let's hear about this.
Really cool, actually. He was training with us in KRT for a long time, and he's cool. You know, I see him doing a lot of stuff on Instagram, teaching and that. He's good as well. You know, I like him. I've got a lot of time for him. Maybe not spent as much time with Justin as the other two I've mentioned, but that's purely because I've not seen him so much. You know, but you know, he's nice. He's a good guy. He's got a really good diverse load of techniques he throws, and you know, he's there or thereabouts. And I think he's pretty active still as well. I
Oh
think
yeah,
didn't he fight not so long ago, really? I think he was supposed to fight on Rene's Ring
he
Wars.
was. He
Can't
was.
remember if he did in the end. But yeah, he's cool.
He's like a Tasmanian devil, and I say that in the nicest of ways. He's like Tasmanian devil and Looney Tunes all over the place. But he told me to tell you that you guys saw each other at the 2005 tournaments because he trains with Sensei Junior Russo, a standout guy as well. Like I love Sensei Russo because Russo like is just salt and earth kind of guy for everybody. So Justin comes from a very good teacher. But yeah, to bring it back to that, you and Justin and Russo apparently met you or saw you at the 2005 tournament, if I'm not mistaken. Do you remember that
In
incident?
London. Yeah, I think that was probably at the World Tournament in Crystal Palace. It was a really good tournament. That was actually. I had some distractions going on at that tournament. My dad died literally about 3 weeks before the tournament. So yeah, it was the first ever major tournament that I'd been at where my dad weren't there. So it was actually a really difficult experience on the day. Actually, at the beginning of the day, if someone had said, "Do you want to pull out?" I'd probably been like, "Yeah, you know what, just not feeling right." Ended up coming third, which was probably the best I could have hoped for under the circumstances that happened before that. But yeah, I actually probably hold that trophy probably as my prize trophy above everything else because of what I experienced shortly before that. So it wasn't an easy tournament, but it was a fantastic tournament in many ways. So I probably don't remember all the aspects of that tournament as I probably should have, but yeah. But
Apparently,
I think Gillespie and Julian Nadeau and a few other the Canadians, Justin and other people were there. Julian Nadeau actually knocked out a girl with an Ishiro Mawashi. I remember that because it's on highlight reels everywhere. She was knocking out this girl much taller than her because Julie's actually shorter than me, but she just did this Ishiro Mawashi straight off the bat and knocked this girl out.
Julie, what's her last name?
Julian Nadeau.
Maybe I might know her because after I'm gonna look into this because I for a second there I thought you said Julie Lamar because Julie Lamar is another one of
Yeah, she's good. I like her. She's got a really good background. But no, Julia Nadeau was like an all-round great karateka. She competed in kata. So when I was over there, she won the female kata and I won the male kata. Then she won the cadets women and I came second in the cadets boys basically. So yeah, she's really good. She's not so much. In fact, I don't think she trains at all now. She's very much into CrossFit and things like that. But she was really good. Technical ability was fantastic. Really flexible. She competed in the World Kata tournaments as well. So she was really good all round. I think she was like one of Daniel Gaborthier's superstars really at the time. It's a shame that her path didn't continue on in Kyokushin, but hey, it was fantastic that she was there because she was really good.
There's also you fought a Kazakh apparently, and Justin's like asking about fighting the Kazakh. So let me ask you, what's it like fighting a Kazakh? Because it's not like a Russian. Because when I ask people, what are the Kazakhs like in Kyokushin, they kind of say they're like Russians, but without the technique. Without the technique, they're just full strength, basically.
Yeah, so I think he's talking about in in Australia when I
Yeah,
won the world tournament over there. So yeah, I mean this guy was bashing everybody up beforehand, and rumor has it that he was wearing football shin pads underneath his gi, and then halfway through the tournament they found out that he was wearing these shin pads, and obviously they didn't disqualify him or nothing like that. But yeah, so I fought him in the final, and it was I mean it was a great time for me because I won. But the first round was tough, as you say. He was really strong. Yeah, a little bit raw, but yeah, this guy had a really good technique on him as well. He was knocking a fair few people out with some Jordan Washis. He actually caught me with a good Shtaski in the first round. I didn't go down, and I think that mentally kind of broke him. because he dropped almost everybody else in the tournament. And don't get me wrong, I'd probably done the same, but I think mentally he wasn't used to giving everything and the person not going down. So he caught me with a good Staski, covered it up, recovered really well, and then I just started chewing him up. And come the end of the first round, he could barely stand, where I chopped his inside leg out. And in the end, I caught him with a really good punch on the chest, and I think I might have broke a bone or something, because he was stretchered off and everything. So it was kind of if the rumors are true about the shin pads, it's kind of a good comeuppance in that sense, because I don't agree with cheating in tournaments and things like that. If you're going to win fair and square. But yeah, it was a fantastic event, fantastic day for me. I've been fortunate to get a lot of trophies and do some great work, hopefully.
There's one in the corner right there. I see. There's
That's actually the third place from 2005.
Oh, that's amazing, man. Yo, your dad would be so happy for you. Your dad would be really happy. I just want to say, because I kind of lost my dad. So I lost my dad in 2014, and it was right before my last year of university, and they asked me, "Do you want to cancel the semester?" And I said, "No." I said, "I got to do this." I said, I have to do it. And it's and sometimes, some people say, based on the circumstances, you said, let's bring it to back, because, it's going to be a bit more life here now. And, I remember I had a teacher, and he said, it's not about the marks. He's like, you did what so few people have the strength to do. He's like,
Yeah.
a lot of people would just say, and you could swear on the show. I mean, I'll try to limit it, but you know what? I'm going to try to say, I'm going to try to use my vocabulary here. But he's like, you know what? He's like, a lot of people would say, forget it. I'm just going to cancel and then just go.
Yeah. It's much easier to take the easy route sometimes. I heard a story about Michael Thompson. It's probably, I think this is the only time he beat Michel Waddell, and I think a few months or a couple of months before, I think his brother passed away or something. So it's happened to many people, and probably only a few people have the mental capacity to continue on with it. It's not the easiest environment. I wouldn't wish it on very many people, don't get me wrong, but is if you believe and want something and you've worked hard for it, then why not see it through? And that was a situation that I was in. Obviously the last few weeks of that tournament were not the best preparation I could have had. Before that, I was feeling fantastic. What would have been really great is to fought Roman Yuzinian, who eventually won the tournament in the final, but I didn't make it there. So
still got third. Yeah, but that third place says a lot more about your character and doing it than a lot of other people were, because we always see the easy way out, and it's so easy. People say, "Well, I would do this." No, you don't. You don't know what it's like to when you experience personal tragedy of that level, and you're battling with emotions, and your mind's picking at it, events that what you could have done better, what could I have done this, and you're trying to balance that with karate. For me was school, and also I was playing hockey at the time, and I was gonna just call it quits and say I'm done. I'm done. I can't do this anymore.
Yeah, it's very easy to do that, because you don't have to deal with a whole load of emotions that are necessary or unnecessary in that situation. But I suppose the great thing about karate is all the time that you're training, at least maybe not in tournaments, it's a different vision then, but all the time you're training, you're not thinking about much else, so you could just go and train, and all you're thinking about is where your next breath of air is coming from, or your next water break, so that's the good thing about sports. It is a distraction, as well as it's a tough time when it comes to tournaments, because lots of other things come into play. But yeah,
very true. So obviously, you've won all these tournaments and whatnot, and now we fast forward to 2020. It's been quite a crazy year, and you and Wesley came up with KRT. What was the idea behind that? How did that happen? Because it's so ingenious how it's picked up steam.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I mean, we were on about initially it's KRT tips and tricks effectively, and the idea initially was to just put out some little under 10-minute videos of little tips and tricks, how to deliver techniques, how to improve people's technical ability. Maybe they're struggling with certain techniques, certain ways to deliver techniques, or certain elements in katas and things like that. So we started off pretty much just doing a couple of these little videos, and then all of a sudden we were in full lockdown swing. We were like, you know what, we could actually support and help a lot of people here that are unable to go to their dojos, and they're unable to train, you know. And it's a very tough time the last year for a lot of people. And we go back to obviously the mental situation of where we both were when our dads passed. You know, people can find themselves alone. They can find themselves in a depressed situation because you can't go out, you can't do what you normally can. Maybe your job's under threat and things like that. So our main goal was to then give people a place to train, a place of distraction, and as close a environment to actually being in the dojo as possible. It's not the same. It will never be the same, and we've never claimed it to be the same. But what it does, we feel, might be wrong and people might correct us, is give people a great environment, a friendly environment with a great caliber of a lot of different people we've had on the show to teach and help improve people. And I think without the likes of KRT, and there's other people doing the same thing, but without them, many people wouldn't have had the opportunity to train with. We've had some really great guests. I mean, it's impossible to reel them all off, really, because we had so many amazing world champions, pioneers, legends come on the show that many people would never have experienced training with. And likewise, you know, I mean, for me to go and train with Shian Cameron Quinn, he's either coming over here or I'm going over there, you know, in that aspect, you know. Rose, you know, Mamro, these
Yeah,
great people, and I'm not saying that they're the only ones, because they're not.
yeah, it kind of cut out there. So who are the names you just listed off there?
Okay, so we had Mamro, Marcel, Gorokov, Cameron Quinn. We even had the great Jeff Wybrow come out of retirement, and he was actually not only teaching for us but training with us as well. You know, we're talking about one of the original pioneers of Kyokushin. You know, and we were very, very lucky to have these people, A, come on our show, and B, give all of these other people, all of these other karate students, the experience of training with all these great names. You know, we've had European, world champions, you know, lots and lots of people that we've been very fortunate to, I suppose, use a little bit of our experience and relationships with them to get them on the show. But ultimately, they all could have said no, and I like to think that they said yes because of the caliber that we're trying to give people, you know. And we're trying to give people the best, and you know, I'm not saying we're always right, I'm not saying we are the best, but what we can do is try to provide the best for people. And I think we've done a pretty good job on that, and I think we've had a really great bit of exposure between myself and Wesley. And you know, the relationship that me and Wesley have is phenomenal, and that's probably one of the reasons why it's been fairly successful, because I speak to Wesley on an hourly basis every day.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, me too. No, he's like my new best friend. Like I message him UFC stuff. Like we talk about we were talking about like the first ever UFC, like, and how like because people think, well, Royce Gracie won the UFC one. Yeah, but you know who the first fighter was? It was a kickboxer named Gerard Gordeau, who has a Kyokushin background.
Yeah, I know. I've been on. I've actually talked with Gordeau. Me and Wesley were actually asked to go over to Hungary to just train on the camp, and then they were like, "Hey guys, do you mind coming out and like teaching a couple of bits?" But Gordeau, don't get me wrong, he's mental when he's on the mat, but he's a really nice guy. You know, he's pretty down to earth. You know, we all went to this dinner and ball, and everyone else is like wearing a real fancy suit, and
he's showing up in like a hoodie, right?
Yeah, And he's just like, no, I'm just not this airs and graces kind of guy. I mean, he's probably from the street. He's never forgot the street, and he's you know, he's just, I'm me, and that's it, you know. And you can't ask for more than that of people, you know.
No, exactly. Like a bit of a controversial figure, and you know, I like to call him like him and his brother like the bad boys of Kyokushin. Without they're not bad, like they're not bad people, but you know what? They kind of stuck it to the authority. You know, they have their own way of doing things, and good on them. You know,
Yeah.
they're very nice people, like as you just said. You know, those are like two guys I'd love to have on, Gerard and Nico, and you know, like they
I
do
mean,
what they want.
I mean, I'm sure they'd be willing to come on. Gerard is he's cool, you know. He's like, yeah, he was taking the session. He was like, you just go and teach, and I'm like, hey, but don't you know, you're the Kancho, do you not want to? He's like, no. And then actually I was doing some kata with Zolt and Sensei, because we were going to do a demonstration, a last minute impromptu bit. It was like, do you want to do it? I was like, yeah, okay, we'll do this. And then actually we was running through, and then Kancho Budo is just standing on the sideline doing some kata with us. So I was like, you know what, that's great, because I think it's a real good example in some ways, to think that you're never above stepping in the line. You know, it doesn't matter what grade, what ability, what you've done in the past. I think it's really important to show people that you're willing to do these things. You're willing to adapt. You're willing to learn. You're willing to step into the line and show people, hey, I might be a 6th, 7th, 8th Kancho, Shian person, but I was first a karate student. And I think this is a very important thing that maybe a lot of people forget about, because they're always teaching or whatever. But it's really important sometimes to just step back into the line and think, I can be a student and an instructor at the same time, because you should be continuing to try to learn, try to progress, to then give that information back to your students, regardless of where you are in hierarchy in organizations or dojos, etc. So it was a really strange experience, to be there.
Yeah, he's a very interesting guy. But from what I've heard, like whether it's from you, Wesley was telling me a bit about him, because when I was picking Wesley's brain about the first UFC, like Wesley was just saying A1 things about him. He's like, he treats you like you're his friend. He talks to you. He doesn't talk to you like I'm a Kancho Shian and you're here. Like, no, and you know, that's why I think he kind of like separates himself from a lot, because and I just wish his organization, what he does, got more knowledge. It's just too bad that he's kind of off the grid, we can say, because like because he has an internet page, but his social media is not as well, it's not as well,
I
like
don't think
promoted.
Gerard is on social media. His brother Nico is. His brother Nico Gordo is on Facebook, etc. But yeah, Gerard is he's just not from that world.
No.
You know, I mean, even his phone is, you know, it's never with him. Whereas everybody else, you know, they're carrying their phone around with them. They're doing this.
Yeah, like they have their phone. It's like Darren, I got a call coming. Just hold. I don't have a call. I'm just.
Oh, 1 second. I'm just here. Yeah, absolutely. Gerard is not like that. He's like, you know, I'm here. I'm in the present. I'm with you guys. And there, you know, there's no other distractions. And we all get deterred by technology a lot. Probably way too much of what we should do. But yeah, Gerard just isn't into that, and he's just like, don't have time for it. I don't want to get involved in this, because I mean, we were chatting briefly before we came on about keyboard warriors and things like that, and there's a whole nother world on social media that is out of physical existence, you know. And unfortunately it's here, it's around, and fortunately it's here and it's around as well. But yeah, he is just one of the people that is like, I just can't be doing with that. It's just not interested.
Yeah, and you know, and it's like, and he's just like, he just comes off like just so like, like he's just like, he's like, I don't really care, like, and he's just what an example should be. And I'm really hoping that's like my goal. Like my ultimate dream guests are him and his brother, John Bones Jones, George St. You know what, more, yeah, just those two. Because if I say George St. Pierre, like everyone wants to, they're gonna ask me, they're gonna like say, oh, you gotta ask him about Kyokushin, and then that puts pressure on me. So you know what, I'm gonna do that's how I do it. But I'm really I really love that story where you said we went to the dining room with people in suits, and he just shows up in a tracksuit, like he's like, I don't care. He's like, who am I trying to impress?
He was just in a hoodie and jeans, no airs, no graces. He's just like, everybody either knows me or they don't know me, and the perception either way is not going to change if I turn up in a suit or casual clothes. And in that sense, is right, you know. It is.
I'm I'm the same way too. Like I work I work for like I have a day job obviously, so I work for one of Canada's biggest phone companies. But thank God like they don't say you have to wear a suit because we're all working from home. Like you have to wear a suit. Like they say just wear what you want that describes you best. And I feel like it's the best message because then you're promoting yourself better. You're showing the customers you're a likable person. You're not putting on some facade. And you know, like that's just what that's what it is. Like you like people see through the facades eventually.
Yeah, sometimes they do, and sometimes they don't. But yeah, I mean, and sometimes there's an expression in the UK, because we have a thing called Marmite.
Mhm.
It's basically a spread that you put on like sandwiches or toast and things like that. And there was these adverts going around, and Marmite, you either love it or you hate it, and that's what they say about certain people, like the likes of Gordo, maybe the likes of Wesley, me, and probably everybody in some description. But they're like Marmite, you either love them or you hate them, because you can either tolerate them or you can't.
Yeah.
And
Great
and
way.
and that's what most things is about. It's about toleration. You know, can you tolerate this person enough to be in your life? Can you tolerate this situation at work to stay there? You know, we all like and dislike elements of everything. It's just
Mhm.
about the toleration levels of whether you can accept it. And I think that's probably why you know, Kyokushin isn't publicized as much as what it maybe should be, and it isn't as popular what it is because you can either tolerate the things you go through during training, or you can't. And unfortunately, it's hard. It's very, very hard. It's very, very physically demanding with very, very little reward. Definitely not financially. You know, we don't have a professional situation where we're like Cristiano Ronaldo's of the world, but you know, we've probably got people that are as talented as Cristiano Ronaldo in our own realms of karate. But the exposure, the monetary value, and therefore the tolerance is not as much for people to stick around to do these things. If you know you're going to be running 5, 6, 7, 10 miles a day around a football pitch, but you're going to be getting 100 grand a week in 10 years' time, toleration is probably going to be a bit higher to do it, right?
Yeah, like for example, there's karate combat. I'm sure you heard about this karate league they have, but there's no Kyokushin guys, and I have a theory about that. So it's a hypothesis because I don't know if you heard of a guy named Nero MMA. He's a guy that does like techniques on Instagram. He's from Sweden, Kyokushin background, and he was about to sign with karate combat. And he's going to be the first Kyokushin practitioner. And I refuse to watch karate combat because they didn't sign him. Because all the guys on karate combat, what's their style? Shito Ryu, Shotokan, maybe one Goju Ryu, but it's mainly Shito Ryu, Shotokan, and maybe Kempo too. And it's like, guys, the reason why they're not bringing in Kyokushin is because they know when that low leg kick comes in, they're finished.
Yeah. But you know, I mean, not taking anything away from a lot of other styles. You know, Shotokan, they got I mean, obviously Kyokushin is derived of a few of them
Yes.
original styles anyway. But you know, I mean, Shotokan have got fantastic katas, fantastic sharp delivery of technique, really good techniques. I mean, and you know, the only difference between us and them is that we actually are hitting people and they are stopping hitting people. There is a great skill set in being able to stop that technique before you hit the person. Don't get me wrong, but at the same stage, you know, if you get kicked with one of them low kicks that kickboxers, Thai boxing, Kyokushin people are going to deliver, all of a sudden your point scoring stance becomes a little bit of a weak area. And you know, people argue about it all the time in Kyokushin. Yeah, well, your hands are low, you don't get punched to the face. Yeah, hands up. You know, it's a weakness that we found within the style that we compete in. But as we've proven, there are many people that go on to do things with face punches that win major tournaments that kickboxers, Thai boxers have been doing for all their life, you know. So it's interesting when people always look at the limitations of a certain style or organization of contact fighting and never the positives, because they all have positive area in some way, shape, or form. You know,
Hmm.
it's the sharpness from Shotokan and the power of boxing and the face punch and durability of Kyokushin. You know, you put them all together and you've got yourself an awesome piece of machinery there.
Yeah, exactly. Not only that, but you have like for me, my background was Taekwondo before Kyokushin, and the benefits of Taekwondo is you learn how to use your hips and you learn how to do high kicks. And then I was like, okay, well, you know what? This is not for me. I want to do Kyokushin, and the rest is history. Oh, can you still hear me? Okay.
Yeah, I can. I think you cut out a little bit, but it might just have been my end. So it's
Yeah.
cool.
Perfect. Yeah, yeah. So like yeah, but like I was saying, yeah, I did Taekwondo
I mean,
first.
there's a great world.
There's a great world of what?
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, yeah. No, what were you saying? There's a great world of what exactly?
Cutting out a little bit. I'm not sure if it's my end or your end.
Oh, it's weird. Mine's looking good, I think.
Okay, I'm just connecting to my hotspot on my phone to see if it improves. Is that any better?
Yeah, yeah, it's way better.
Right, great.
Yeah.
Let's carry on.
Yeah, so as mentioned, you're saying there's a whole world of combat sports, right?
Yeah, there is. I mean, and I think you could take a lot from other sports as well. You know, little ladder drills that footballers do for great fast twitch movements. You know, that's fantastic for fighting because I've always said it. You know, if you could be the best person on the pads in the world, absolutely amazing. But if you can't get from A to B to deliver those techniques, then pretty much what you're trying to achieve is void. It is useless. If you can't make the distance up between you and the person, there's no point in you being the best pad man in the world unless you're going to get the person coming to you all the time. So, you know, things like that. I worked a lot on ladder drills as a as a young person, should I say, in my early career. Had a guy come over who was actually training with Gary O'Neill for a lot, actually. So I was probably very privileged to have had some knowledge there where we were just doing loads of ladder drills, load of movement drills, which actually put me in good stead for the rest of my career because my movement's pretty good. Yeah, I've got a good technique as well, but loads of people have good techniques, you know. Maybe some people have got better techniques. I don't know. But if you can't bridge that gap between you and the other person, it's useless. So I always tell people to pay attention to your footwork, your movement, because it becomes incredibly important, and especially for someone who's vertically challenged, should I say, like myself. I'm not the biggest in the world, so you know, people with long legs, the likes of Yevgeny Mamro, for example. I fought him in the 2013 semi-finals in the World Tournament. He's got very long legs. Wesley as well. We've never fought, but we've obviously sparred many times and trained together even more times. He's got very long legs for a lightweight fighter. You know, I'm 5'6" and Wesley's like 5'10", 5'11", near on 6 foot, and that's pretty tall for a lightweight. So when you think I've got little piddly legs, it's very difficult to bridge that gap. I've actually fought Shihan Felix a couple of times in once or twice in non-contact fighting as well, and it's incredibly difficult to make your way in against someone who is 6'4" plus and 120 kilograms.
Guy's a monster. Like if I like yeah, like I want like you told me about him, like this is my Shihan. I look like I said, like I look like you sent me a photo, I believe, and like I looked at him, and I was like, holy, like this guy is wow. Like he's the perfect.
He's a very big man and a very strong man. And even though he's so big, he moves incredibly well because what people fail to realize is the likes of Jeff Wybrow, Michael Thompson, Nick DaCosta, Felix Tomaza, they were all really good non-contact fighters. And non-contact obviously is about scoring points, not beating people up. You know, to move in and out of that range, you need to be pretty quick. Yes, Felix is massive; it helps him. But the likes of Nick and Michael Thompson, they're not overly big people, but they had really good foot movement. Jeff Wybrow was, you know, way ahead of his time, way ahead of his time, and self-taught himself a lot of things. Actually, Jeff Wybrow said that Mick Thompson was the most talented person that he'd ever taught. And he's taught a lot of people. So that just goes to show how good Mick Thompson really was.
Exactly. The Black Panther. The Black Panther before Marvel's Black Panther.
Well, yeah, it's true. And he was, obviously he came fourth in the 87 World Tournament. He actually lost to Nakamura in 84 and Matsui in 87. And both them fights were 5 extensions. Now, bearing in mind that you were only supposed to do maybe 3 or 4 rounds, he had 5 extensions on
Wow.
both of them. So, he was
W-
incredible fighter.
What's happened with Michael Thompson? Like, it kind of seems like he's retired. And, when I spoke with a mutual friend of ours, he's like, he's retired completely, got out of it. Word is he kind of left the UK supposedly,
Yeah. So he went to. I don't know too. I don't profess to have a perfect relationship with Michael. I've seen Michael a few times, and I know people who know Michael really well. But yeah, he went over to Ireland, and I think he's a coach of one of the rugby teams over there, like one of the Premier League clubs. So he's very much into physiotherapy, coaching people in that sense. But yeah, he doesn't really do a lot in karate. Now and again, he does a little bit of teaching. We actually really tried to get him on KRT, but he said, I'm just not interested in doing Kyokushin anymore. And I don't know the reason behind that. I don't know if he was burned, if something went wrong. I know that there's always a little bit of a funny, what's the word I'm looking for? He transitioned from obviously Kyokushin and then started doing some Seidokan with Andy Hug and then some K1. And at that point of time, I think it was a little bit frowned upon to go and start doing these other styles of karate, especially seeing as Mike was a superstar. He was a superstar. He was known absolutely everywhere. And he was only like 87, 88 kilos tops. So in relation to some of the big boys that are in K1, he was way behind in terms of weight, but way ahead in terms of technical ability, I'd say. But it was difficult for him to match on some of the weight levels. But yeah, I think there was some problems there about him branching out to fighting into some other organisations and styles, and bearing in mind at that kind of time as well, the IFK had split from IKO, so it's all a bit of a delicate situation, I'm sure, that I don't know the ins and outs of, but all I know is that it's obviously a great loss to Kyokushin, because again, he was Jeff's student, and Jeff was miles ahead of his time, and Mick Thompson was the same. He was on another level, and to go 5 extensions with Matsui is no shy figure, and he only got dropped with a Morshigeri at the end of the fight through exhaustion, really. Kudos to Matsui, he had to go through the same, and he came out the victor. But you could probably have argued that had the rules been adhered to, Mick would have gone through to the final, because I think he was. I don't know if he was going to win on weight, but I hear that he was going to win on boards. So it's a shame, but take nothing away. It's a fantastic achievement.
It is. Now, taking away from karate, I had to ask you this. Wesley told me to bring this up. You're a big James Bond fanatic like I am. So we both grew up on.
I love James Bond. I've got all the movies. I've seen them all. I love it, and there's just something about it. It's just a great franchise, And going from, Sean Connery, rest his soul and everything, just passed away recently. I think he, touches on people that are James Bond fans. Yeah, he's done a lot of other a lot of great films. The Rock. All of them kind of films that he's done. But he'll always be known as the first James Bond. And he obviously he was associated loosely with Kyokushin as well, an honorary black belt. And I think Hanshi looks a little bit like him in his younger days as well. If you see some of the younger Hanshi pictures, you'll actually see a bit of a resemblance between him and Sean Connery. Not quite the height, but facially,
Yeah.
a bit similar.
There was also other Bonds film too. Like my favorite too. Like, okay, for me and Sean Connery, my favorite ones are "You Only Live Twice," Diamonds Are Forever, his last one, but Diamonds Are Forever was kind of like, it wasn't his best one because he didn't really want to be there. Like, so for those like who don't know what we're talking about, we're big James Bond fanatics, 007, and I have the book, and then I looked up the history, and apparently like when he was coming back for Diamonds Are Forever, they had to beg him to come out of retirement. Like the Broccoli family said, please come out because George Lazenby doesn't want to do this ever again.
Yeah, well, I think George Lazenby, he got a bit of a bum deal, George Lazenby, actually. I think before that, obviously, James Bond had no emotions, maybe that's why I relate to him so much. I'm just kidding. But he had no emotional content. And in the one that George Lazenby obviously was madly in love with this girl, got married to her, and then I don't know. It just failed for probably a dozen reasons. But yeah, rumor has it that Sean Connery was obviously bummed off by the Broccoli family, and they said, "Yep, we're going to go with someone else." And at that point in time, Sean was probably thinking, "It's not going to be as successful, mate, because I've done the last 5 films." Or however, I think he did 6 in the end, and Roger Moore then did more, didn't he? Like 7.
Yeah, so Sean Connery did Dr. No, From Russia with Love, Goldfinger, Thunderball, You Only Live Twice, and then Diamonds Are Forever. So
Yeah,
that's 6, yeah.
Yeah. I think he did an unofficial one as well.
Yeah, Never Say Never Again.
That's it. Yeah,
But it was terrible. It was the worst. It was like so bad.
But that was almost like that one was almost like a fingers up to, because that had nothing to do with the Broccoli family. It was like someone else, and it was almost like a fingers up, and it was still successful in terms of blockbusters and things like that. As if to say, you think that I am not, you don't need me anymore, but clearly I'm doing a much better job over here as an unofficial Bond film is still outranking your official Bond franchise. So yeah, I mean, obviously I don't know Sean Connery, and I never will now, unfortunately. But I think he took it really badly when they just kind of elbowed him to the side and said, "Yeah, you're surplus to requirements, no more. Let's move on to the next guy." And obviously George Lazenby was. Would Sean Connery have changed that film outcome? I don't know. I think maybe Sean Connery's attitude and previous Bond films would have made the film maybe a little bit more rugged, maybe a little bit less emotional. Then on Her Majesty's Secret Service may have become a little bit more successful. But what happened after that is obviously Sean came back, and then they went totally raw with Timothy Dalton. And then
No. It was Roger Moore. It was Roger Moore for 7. But then A View to a Kill, his last one, he didn't want. It was kind of the similar situation with Sean Connery. But the thing is, Roger was much more agreeable to do his last film, A View to a Kill, with Christopher Walken, Grace Jones, Tanya Roberts. Rest in peace. She recently passed away, unfortunately. And
I really liked Roger Moore as a Bond. He was don't get me wrong, he was a lot softer than probably.
Yeah, he was way more humoristic.
Yeah, he was way soft. But I guess because in that era, like he was kind of the 80s, and then Timothy Dalton was kind of at the end of the 80s. I think 88, 89. Timothy
87
Dalton.
to 89, yeah.
So because I was born in 81, up until kind of then, I was probably most interactive with the Roger Moore ones. I really liked him, even though he was kind of a softer James Bond. He kind of had like little quirky bits, and the gadgets were getting a little bit better because the technology was getting a bit better. But then and then all of a sudden they were like, Timothy Dalton, let's go back to the raw situation, beating people up, and and obviously the one where Felix Leiter gets eaten apart by a shark. You're like, oh, I haven't seen this in the last 10 years with Roger Moore. It's completely different.
Well, here's the funny thing with Timothy Dalton. So after Roger Moore left, they were this close to getting Pierce Brosnan. Like Pierce Brosnan signed the contract, but then Remington Steele said, and they're like, we're going to bring you back. And then there was a whole controversy.
At that point, they know once you go Bond, you're not going back to Remington Steele. Let's face it.
Yeah, but NBC had there was a whole contract dispute with NBC. So they went to Dalton, but Timothy Dalton didn't really want it. He was already like a stage actor at that point. He was doing some other films, and he kind of took it like on short notice because they threw a lot of money at him. They were like, we're in a desperate situation now, and we want you to come back. And Timothy was like, okay, but he played Bond. He was basically Daniel Craig before Daniel Craig. And people realize that now. Like, you didn't like his 2 films. I didn't like his last one, License to Kill, But I love the Living Daylights because it's the end of the Cold War. It's like you see how it's ending. Afghanistan, the Russians are getting out finally. Do you remember the Russian general they meet at the end always, Gotil, the one that always like works with the British?
Yeah.
He
It's
comes like he comes very aged at the end, and it's like that's what I loved about the Living Daylights. It's basically everything culminates and it just ends like quietly.
yeah. It's like I said, it's a great franchise, and although ultimately it's the same plot every time. You know what I mean? Someone wants to take over the world, someone wants to kill the world, and James Bond comes along. He has a nice couple of girls on the way, and
Yeah.
and then saves the world. But it's such a great franchise. I love it. And even although Daniel Craig's probably had the much better deal in terms of technology and cars and cameras and things like that, but still revisiting some of the old ones and the classics are amazing. I mean, I really like Goldfinger with Sean Connery. The car is absolutely amazing in that. Obviously, seeing Fort Knox as well and all that gold bullion, it's like, whew, Jesus Christ. And odd job with the hat, throwing it and chopping off
Yeah.
that statue. There's even in the old ones with some very primitive technology and gadgets. It's pretty cool still.
They pulled it through.
Yeah, they did, and it's I'm a big Star Wars fan as well. I love it. I love the whole franchise. I love the whole thing. But you look at George Lucas in '78 and '79, I think it was, or '77 when the first Star Wars came out. In comparison to what they're doing now, is light years. Ignore the pun there. Ahead of where the original Star Wars came along. It's like all them classic films that were back in the days, and you watch them now and it's like a little bit of a pixelated picture where the cameras were never that great and they didn't look after the film reels or whatever. And but James Bond, I absolutely love it, and I can't wait for the new one to come
Me
out.
too.
I have a real concern about who's going to be the next James Bond. There's names always flying around about the hat of this, and it's a really tricky role to actually take on, because if you bomb out on Bond, you're probably going to find it hard as an actor to get another role after that. And then
Yeah.
if you make it as Bond, you're probably going to have a lot of offers coming through. And Daniel Craig, apparently the last couple of Bonds, he's not wanted to do it. He's like, I guess the expectations and obviously money and all that other stuff comes into play on it. But yes, rumor has it that he really didn't want to do the last couple,
No.
and I think the last one was really good, and I have no doubt that this one's going to be either. He's probably people's most favourite Bond, most people's, especially nowadays, but he's had such an advanced technology in comparison to the likes of Roger Moore, Timothy Dalton, Lazenby, Roger
Pierce
Moore, and
Brosnan.
even Pierce Brosnan. And GoldenEye is probably one of my favourite
Yes.
James Bond films.
Yes.
I love it. Absolutely love it. I like Sean Bean. I liked I always forget the lady's name, but she's effectively in X-Men as well.
Famke Johnson. Famke
Yeah,
Johnson. She plays Zenya. Yeah, she plays
yeah,
Zenya.
on the top. What a
That was
name.
my first. That was my first crush I ever had. I'm being serious. Like ever since then, like I love Eastern European women. So guys, if you're listening to them watching the show, yes, if I date a woman, I always say she's got to be either Russian, former Czechoslovakian, or I don't know. It's those two because like I love Eastern. They're beautiful. I mean, look at Famke.
She's a good actress as well, but she's very good looking. But yeah, I mean, GoldenEye was fantastic. Obviously, there'd been a few years a break between Timothy Dalton and Pierce coming along, whereas before that, you almost had a Bond year like every year or every other year was coming out.
Yeah, no, it's so true because like when Timothy Dalton did his only two, they were supposed to do a third one, but then bankruptcy came. There was all this other things, but apparently what they were supposed to do was it was supposed to take place in Hong Kong with Dalton, and Dalton had signed on to it, but then everything just came, and then finally, when Brosnan became available, things just fell in place, and they said let's do GoldenEye, and GoldenEye was his best one. Like I love Sean Bean too, like that storyline of 006 and then 007, and you understand 00. When I was younger, I didn't care about the story. I just like the AK-47, the tank chasing. But when you understand it older, when you're older and you understand like the storyline, like the history behind GoldenEye, like with the villain story, it's really like wow. Like you understand Sean Bean's character.
Yeah, and I think GoldenEye was where Ian Fleming used to retreat to write all of his books in the Caribbean, in Jamaica as well. I think that's what his house was called, or something like that. So it's kind of a touching tribute as well in respect to the author.
Came out.
I actually bought all the books as well in the last, I don't know, I think it was the last year. I've only started on Casino Royale at the moment, so I'll get around to reading them all. But it's just a nice memorabilia to have, and the franchise, I hope, continues on, even though, ultimately, save the world, supervillain, victorious.
Who do you want to see as Daniel Craig's successor? Because everyone says it's Idris Elba. I mean, I don't mind it, but I mean, I'd be like, and it's like I wouldn't mind Idris, but I just don't see him as that. He's more of like a side character.
Yeah, I don't think Idris is a really good actor. I like him in a lot of his things, but I don't think he's gonna be the right kind of Bond. He's a good looking chap. He's tall. He's obviously, he can fight as well, because I don't know if you know, but he did a kickboxing fight, actually, with a really good friend of mine, Jared Wright, who is a producer in films and TV shows and documentaries. Jared actually does Kyokushin. His father is a Shian as well in the BKK. So Jared has done a lot of fight documentaries with Jean-Claude Van Damme and Idris Elba, but Idris Elba actually did a kickboxing fight, so he can actually fight. Unlike probably Roger Moore probably couldn't. But I just don't see it. I just don't see Bond being in Idris Elba. I'm not sure who it would be. I would love to be Bond, but I don't think they'll take a 5'6" version. And he's probably got to be fairly good looking too. So yeah, I don't know. There's rumors going around, but I mean, now we've got deviating slightly, but you probably never would have seen Robert Pattinson as the next Batman.
No.
From his days in Twilight to being Batman, you'd be like, this ain't going nowhere. But we'll see how it pans out. So again,
there's only two Batmans. There's Michael Keaton's Batman and Christian Bale's Batman. That's it. That's all.
I like them too as well.
I ignore Ben Affleck, and I'll give Robert Pattinson a shot, but it's like so used Batman. It's like, man, just leave it where it is, and that's why. But I mean, Pierce Brosnan did not want to leave before Casino Royale. Like, he said, I want to fulfill my contract, and then they said, no, we're going with Daniel. But he was getting old. Let's be honest. Brosnan was in his 60s.
Yeah, exactly, and that's the problem. And it was probably a similar thing with Sean Connery. They were getting to an age now where Bond is kind of he's not young, but he's not old. He's kind of in the mid-range, probably between your kind of 35 and 45, I'd say, kind of age range, where he's kind of mature enough to be a little bit sophisticated, worldly, etc., but very capable of doing all the things that James Bond needs to do. So I think it was a right move to move on from Pierce Brosnan, even though I liked him as a Bond. Didn't necessarily like all of his films, but I quite liked him as a Bond.
Me too.
It was a big risk going with Daniel Craig, because everyone was like, "Oh, you can't have a blonde James Bond." He's tall, dark, and handsome. He can't be blonde.
But Roger Moore had blonde hair.
Huh?
Roger Moore had blonde hair.
Yeah, it was lighter than. I don't think it was quite as blonde as Daniel Craig, but yeah.
But he had everybody's endorsement when they hired him. Like, even Pierce Brosnan, Pierce is just such like a good chap. Like, he takes it on he doesn't have any grudges. Like him, it took all three Bonds. Like, I don't know about Dalton. I think Dalton's kind of like, he just wants to stay away from it all. But Roger Moore and Sean Connery said, this is a good choice.
Yeah. They all said it. And, maybe Idris would work out to be good as well. It's just, we're all looking at it thinking, you don't really fit the bill in, like Daniel Craig didn't with the blonde hair, but worked out good. So, sometimes change is a fantastic thing, and only time will tell. I guess only the Bond franchise know, but really interesting to see who it is. And regardless of who it is, I love it anyway. And I think
I'll watch it too.
There's a lot of fantastic actors out there that could possibly do it. I can't think of any right now, but I think when you're in when you're involved with Bond, you can't see beyond the current Bond at times, which is why we're all looking negatively towards potentially the next Bond. But Bond will end for everybody at some stage, otherwise the franchise doesn't continue. And you know, I don't know how old Daniel Craig is now, but you can definitely see in the last film he's older than maybe what Bond would normally be associated with. But hey, we'll see what happens.
Perfect. Well, from karate to life lessons to James Bond, what a great show. So I really want to thank you for coming on finally. This was great. It just flew by. Where can people connect with you with what you do on social media?
So yeah, I'm on obviously I'm on Facebook, Instagram, like most people, not Gordo, but like most people. Um, yeah, Darren Stringer obviously on Facebook, Stringer D1 on Instagram. We've got KRT tips and tricks on Instagram, Facebook,
TikTok.
and TikTok as well. You can always just drop me an email if you want. You know, it's no problem. I'm around. I'm approachable. Obviously, we all lead busy lifestyles, but I do my best to answer and keep in touch with people because I think it's, you know, if people take the time to express themselves and show an interest in what you do or you don't do, you know, there's obviously a reason for that. So without that support, things like these podcasts or camps or dojos, they don't exist. So, you know, you should take the time to appreciate the fact that people are appreciating you. You can't do it all the time, but I do try. So yeah, I mean, obviously, if you have anything you want to ask or you want to join on in KRT, you know, or anything, let us know. Alternatively, if you've got any ideas for what we could cover on KRT, we are more than open for suggestions. Otherwise, we'll just do what we keep doing.
Perfect. Well, once again, that's Sensei Darren Stringer, guys. We'll be on YouTube, Spotify, iTunes, wherever audio platforms are. We're going to promote the hell out of it. Give him a follow with him and with KRT especially. And yeah,
Thanks. I really appreciate you inviting me on the show. It's been great. We obviously we spoke a bit before we even we got here, but it's been a real pleasure and an honor for me. And I hope that you get the opportunity to interview more great people on your show, and it blows up as well. Obviously, if I can help you, put you in touch with anyone, let me know, and
we'll do.
we'll go from there. But yeah,
Sounds.
enjoy. Thanks a lot, and have a great remainder of your day.
Thanks. You too, Sensei. Us.
No, it's just Darren. I'm
Just
just Darren.
Darren. Oh, perfect. Darren. Perfect, Darren.